Welcome back. Well, experts say China's decision to allow couples to have up to 3 children may not actually do much to grow the younger population. They point to the high cost of living and education. But the government is pushing for a younger workforce to drive its booming economy. CNN's Scott McLean has more.
China is hoping that 3 is a lucky number for families in the world's most populous nation. On Monday, the government announced it will allow couples to have up to 3 children instead of the current limit of 2. The shift in policy comes after census data showed a sharp decline in births, a low of 10 million last year compared to nearly 18 million in 2016. And experts say the population in China is getting older. With a smaller number of people in the workforce, the country's economic future could be at risk. Some residents say the changes came too late for them.
I think the country should have published this policy earlier. Couples like us have missed the time that we could have another child.
Beijing's one-child policy was in place for decades to slow the growth of China's population and reduce poverty. It was enforced with heavy fines and even forced abortions. But that strict policy relaxed a little bit 5 years ago, when the government allowed married couples to have 2 children. But even that failed to boost birth rates. Many couples say it's just too expensive to raise children in cities.
If there are better conditions, then we'd have more kids. Nowadays, young people have to buy a house. This amount of pressure is already huge. And then you have to consider the cost of the child's education.
Chinese media says the policy will come with supportive measures, but few details are available for now. Experts say the extra benefits will be needed to convince people who are under increasing financial strain to make room for one more.
Unless the government introduces real incentives, I don't think that Chinese couples are going to have more kids in the coming years.
A trend that has Beijing worried and looks unlikely to change. Scott McLean, CNN, London.
Here to discuss this is Dali Young, a professor of political science at the University of Chicago and a senior fellow with the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. A pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, nice to join you.
So China's one-child policy resulted in many female babies being aborted or abandoned in favour of male babies, and women were sterilised to prevent more pregnancies. So what is your reaction to this new policy that will allow 3 children per family, a policy reaction to China's ageing population and minimal growth?
Apparently, the general public response is very muted. In fact, there is a lot of wry comments on what is going on. Part of the reason is, again, for many people, the basic reason for the policy switch is because people did not have the babies when they permitted 2 children per family. So the question, therefore, is, would people want to have more children now that they are permitted to have 3 children per couple? Clearly, I think most people recognize that the policy is simply too late.
And of course, China's census in May revealed the country's population growth over the past decade was at its slowest since the 1950s, with an aging population and a shrinking labour force that could derail economic growth in China. So if families don't have more babies, and from what you've said, it doesn't sound like they're inclined to because of the cost mostly, how concerned are you that some of these families may be forced by Chinese officials to have more children?
Well, typically in the past, when the government imposed very draconian family planning policies, they tended to turn especially on the elite, actually, so the bureaucrats, the people who are employed in the state sector. So I would not be surprised that in certain areas, in fact, the civil servants, for example, are asked to take certain measures. But overall, though, it's a little bit harder to switch on people on to actually produce babies than forcing people not to have babies.
I did want to ask you this because, of course, it was back in 2016 that China dropped its one-child policy and allowed families to have 2 children. As you pointed out, a lot of families didn't take up that option. Why didn't China drop the one-child policy earlier than 2016 and offer financial enticements to having more children back then? That would have prevented a lot of heartache and solved China's aging population issues.
Well, yes, indeed. The option was considered during the presidency of Hu Jintao, but he basically decided that the evidence was still not very strong, partly because China did face significant employment pressures. In many ways, actually, there was a lot of inertia as well. And within the population community, for example, the experts, there were also arguments actually against relaxing the policy too soon.